Hope everyone's having a pleasant morning. So there have been a number of questions about something called the Rapid Heat Supplemental Cab Heater on this 2023 Super Duty. And it's a feature that Ford has been making for a number of years. And it is not the same thing as the engine block heater, because the engine block heater is an electric heating element that actually plugs into your 120 volt AC outlets, maybe in your garage or maybe on the exterior of your house. And it actually warms up the engine block by way of the coolant during the nighttime or anytime you've got it plugged in, so that the engine starts out a little bit warmer when you first turn it on in the morning. And it helps it heat up quicker. And it also helps it start quicker because it's not, because like the oil in the sump isn't so thick after sitting out all night and freezing. And so the Rapid Heat Supplemental Cabin Heater is something completely different. And you can best think of it as essentially a space heater, an electric space heater element that is built into the ducting of your HVAC system, just downstream of the heater core. And just like a space heater that you might put in one of the colder rooms in your house, as soon as you turn it on and send electricity to it, it immediately heats up within a few seconds, and it starts to warm up the immediate area around it. And so that's what the Rapid Heat Supplemental Cabin Heater does, which is you'd think Ford would come up with a shorter or catchier sounding name for it, but it helps your truck's interior heat up much faster than it ordinarily would if you were waiting for the engine coolant to come up to temp, which, as you know, in a diesel engine or any large engine, it takes a very long time because it's a gigantic piece of cast iron, hundreds and hundreds of pounds, or 1,000 plus in the case of a diesel. And when it starts out at 20 degrees, 10 degrees, sub-zero temps, it takes a very, very long time for that engine to warm up, which means it takes a very long time for warm coolant to start flowing through the heater core and heating up the interior of the truck. And so that's what the Rapid Heat Supplemental Cabin Heater was meant to address, that problem. The fact, especially in a big diesel pickup, that it takes forever for your heat to come on. And so we had that installed in this truck as an option. You can only get it installed when the truck is built. You cannot get it installed afterward because it's buried so deep inside the dashboard in the ducting of the HVAC system. And so here's how it works. We started the engine about 7 minutes ago. The oil temp is already up to 80 degrees. It started out at about 32, 33. The transmission temp comes up a little bit slower. It's at 59 degrees. As you'd imagine, since the transmission doesn't produce a ton of heat compared to the engine. And the water temp, it's hard to tell because the reading is giving us really strange numbers. It gave us a number of 84 degrees as soon as the truck started, and now it's up to 100 8 minutes after the truck started, which sounds a little bit off, because it's about a 29 or 30 degree morning here in eastern Pennsylvania in the first week of December. But here's what we notice. The heated steering wheel comes on almost immediately. The heated seats come on within about 2 or 3 minutes. And those are the first things you notice. The air coming out of the HVAC system, out of the vents. We don't have the fan turned all the way up, and we can do that now. But the air coming out of the vents of the HVAC system is certainly not hot, but it is absolutely not cold the way it would be in our Cummins, which takes forever to warm up. It's sort of lukewarm, you might say. Again, after 9 or 10 minutes of the engine being turned on. And now, again, at exactly 9 minutes after we turned on the engine, the coolant temp, according to the dashboard here, is up to 113. The oil temp is up to 104. The transmission's still at 68. And so I think what we're experiencing is the fact that this truck warms up very, very quickly, especially a newer truck, because as you can imagine, there tends to be more internal friction in a newer engine than an engine that has I don't know, 400,000 miles on it as our Cummins does. Yeah, and so now just about 10 minutes into operation, and we're finally coming up to highway speeds. The air coming out of the HVAC is entirely warm and entirely comfortable. And so here's the problem, though: you don't know when the Rapid Heat Supplemental Cabin Heater is working. There's no indicator light. There's no message on the dashboard saying, Rapid Heat System in operation. And again, for a company like Ford that is very, very good at marketing and very good at letting you know what your truck's doing, so that you feel good about all the money you spent on it, you'd think they do a little better in terms of telling you, hey, this Rapid Heat System is doing its thing. And it took a lot of digging to actually figure out the parameters under which it operates. At one point, somebody said, well, the outdoor air temp has to be under 48 degrees, and the settings on your heat have to be at 80% of the maximum temp. And you think, okay, what's 80% of the maximum temp on this thing? The temp dial only goes to 85, so 80% of that, call it around 65. All right, fine. So as long as the outdoor temp is under 48 and the heat is set to 65 or above, the Rapid Heat's going to come on. Well, the engine coolant also has to be below a certain temp, because if the engine coolant is warm, then it's going to produce warm air through your heater core. So again, it's a function of three things, actually four things. And the first is adequate electrical current has to be available. In a truck like this, you've got especially if you got the diesel in it, you've got just under, I think, 400 amps of AC of DC current, of 12 volt DC current being generated by that alternator at its maximum output. And 400 amps of 12 volts is just under 5 kWs of power, and the 5 kilowatts. And the Rapid Heat is, I think, a 1500 watt heater, and so as long as you're producing enough electricity to run a 15 watt heater, which uses the power again of an electric space heater that you plug in your house, or maybe an electric blow dryer that your significant other might be using in the morning, then it'll run. If the outside air temp is below a certain point, if the coolant is below a certain point, and if the heater is set to a certain point. And so again, we think the settings are you got to have your heat set at 80% of the max, which is approximately 68 degrees, 65, 68 degrees. The outdoor temp has to be below, the latest number we saw was 48 degrees. The coolant temp has to be below a certain number, and the one we just saw yesterday was 167. The coolant temp now is at 135. So we think we satisfy all the criteria. The outdoor temp is still 31, just 31. And so yes, right now the Rapid Heat Supplemental Cabin Heater should be working. And again, the air coming out of those vents feels nice and warm. And all the boxes appear to be checked. We've been driving, or the engine's been on for 13 minutes, and yes, it's fully warmed up. The air coming into the cabin is absolutely as comfortable and as hot as you'd want it to be. And so that's the information we have on this system. It costs about $250, give or take. And again, it's frustrating that Ford doesn't really tell you too much about it, and they don't tell you when it's operating. So you just have to rely on guesswork and have to dig around and find those numbers. And you just have to sort of trust that your interior is warming up much faster with this supplemental heater than it would without the supplemental heater. But it's a neat system, and we do observe, compared to our Cummins, compared to the Duramax that we have, this thing warms up 1,000 times faster. The heated seats are obviously a welcome addition, and so is the heated steering wheel. But we're very, very happy with how fast the heat comes out on this truck. On a day that isn't even all that cold, it's 29, 30 degrees here in eastern Pennsylvania. You're already experiencing weather in the teens, or already experiencing temps in the single digits in places like Minnesota, Montana, and the Dakotas. Places that we would just as soon not spend that much time during the winter. And if you live in a place like that, this is absolutely the truck for you. Because to our knowledge, the other manufacturers do not include this feature or have it available in their trucks. Again, a supplemental heater, an electric space heating element inside the ducting of the HVAC system, just downstream of the heater core. Very, very, very impressive system. You could tell someone in Ford had a lot of common sense when they came up with that idea and implemented it. And again, it's just a little bit peculiar that they don't do a better job of advertising the fact that that system is in operation, because if they did, it would get a lot more positive PR, and Ford would sell a whole lot more of it. They just make it a mystery. I mean, everybody knows what a block heater does and how that works. Very few people know how the supplemental cabin heater works, and even when it's running. But it certainly does do its job and does produce a ton of heat for you very, very quickly when you turn this truck on one of these cold mornings that we experience here in the Northeast. All right, thanks everyone. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.